It was my pleasure to read and dissect Cognitive Load Theory and Library Research Guides by Jennifer Little. Jennifer is an education librarian at Morehead State University in Kentucky. So let's start by taking a look at cognitive load theory. What is it? Why does it matter? A car's engine can get overtaxed by extreme amounts of input. Think wide open throttle on a hot day up a hill with the AC blasting. Too much input and what happens? Your car overheats. Cognition is simply the act of thinking. Load refers to an amount, or more precisely, a degree to which something is pushed. At its simplest, cognitive load theory suggests that you can think too much. Just like a car's engine, when asked to handle too many inputs simultaneously, the human brain can get overloaded too. This is especially true in an age of digital documents. So you might be wondering, how can I think too much? Isn't thinking good? What cognitive load theory founder John Sweller suggests is that not all thinking is created equal, especially when you're trying to learn something new. Cognitive load theory suggests learners must use a special technique called a schema to help free working memory so information might be stored in long-term memory. So what's a schema? It's a tactic you use to make a difficult task simple. When I sat down at a computer for the first time in 1993, I had no idea what to do. In fact, I remember tears being shed because we thought we'd broken it on the first day. The screen was filled with boxy things, and then we received a menacing blue screen. After hours on the phone with customer support, however, it turned out that the boxy things were Windows, and we just opened too many. From unboxing to jubilation that we hadn't wrecked the computer, we must have spent close to 6 hours. After 20 years of learning to use a computer, what took me 6 hours now takes me approximately 6 seconds. I've developed a schema, a tactic for closing windows and avoiding the blue screen of death. Of course, there was another part of the schema that was quite effective too. Okay, so cognitive load theory suggests that there's a limit to what we can learn at one time. We can learn with less stress by developing schemas that assist us in breaking down tough tasks into smaller, more manageable bits. Eventually, we commit these simpler tasks to long-term memory and can focus on learning something new, like the three types of cognitive load Sweller suggests. First is intrinsic load. Intrinsic load is the amount of processing power your brain uses to learn the basics of a task. We can't eliminate this load from learning, but we can certainly lessen it. Imagine if my Acer desktop computer from way back in 1993 had come with a 1-minute on-site training that showed me where to click to close a window. Hours and buckets of tears would have been saved. As educators, we can help learners reduce intrinsic load by chunking or breaking complex concepts into smaller, more manageable bits. These bits are called, you guessed it, chunks. Next is extraneous load, which is pretty simple. This is the information that is competing for brain space, but doesn't really have anything to do with learning the new task at all. My little PC versus Mac jab a few slides ago is a really good example. This is extra information that you didn't need to understand the slideshow. It was a distraction. Here's another example of extraneous load. This type of load is sometimes called ineffective load because it's, well, not effective. In contrast is effective load, or as Sweller says, germane load. This type of cognitive load happens when learners are able to organize the information they're receiving in such a way that they integrate it into their working knowledge. This is the load that instructors should seek to put their learners under. In a way, germane load could be considered the degree to which you're able to comfortably take chunks and rearrange them to fit neatly into a cohesive whole. If the instructor has done a careful and thoughtful job designing the instruction, learners should be challenged, but not overwhelmed or confused. So to recap, intrinsic load always exists, but it can be lessened by effective instructional design, including chunking. We don't really think about it at the time, but what we're doing as learners is developing schemas or shortcuts to make tasks easier. Extraneous load is the extra stuff we don't need. This can be the product of poor instructional design. Germane load is the good stuff. When we're excited about learning something new and want to learn more, we're experiencing germane cognitive load. So what does this have to do with library research guides? And more importantly, what is a library research guide? This is a library research guide, or a LibGuide for short. LibGuide is just really a fancy way of saying website created by a librarian. These guides can cover just about any topic, but they are designed with the researcher in mind. The learner who wants to discover more about a subject, or perhaps has been assigned a research paper, can use a LibGuide as a starting point, if not a one-stop shop for their information needs. Here's another LibGuide. Notice how the guides are often tied to specific university courses? This one, for instance, is for LIR 824, Human Resources and Strategies. Students taking this course that have been assigned a research paper now have a great starting point without doing much work at all. See how we're lessening the learner's intrinsic load? All right, last one. Take a look at some of the information on this page. It all has something to do with strange Victorian love poems, right? That means our extraneous load is going to be significantly lower than if we just used a traditional search engine. So now you know what a LibGuide is, but why does it matter? Remember chunking? At its core, that's what a LibGuide does. It breaks the research process into smaller, more manageable chunks. You might be wondering, why choose a LibGuide over Google to find sources for a research paper? And that's a great question. The answer is pretty simple, because LibGuides have been compiled by librarians who want to reduce your cognitive load. That means LibGuides have often been created with careful attention given to lessening intrinsic load, eliminating extraneous load, and promoting germane load. In short, LibGuides are designed to make your life easier. And what's not to like about that? So the next time you're writing a paper or conducting research, start with the LibGuide and see if you like what you find. The LibGuide website can be accessed at www.libguides.com. It's not necessarily that LibGuides are better than Google, but what is important to remember is that LibGuides are created with you, the learner, in mind. In her article, Jennifer Little includes an appendix of tips for librarians who want to consider cognitive load theory while writing research guides. Some of the highlights from this list follow and can help you when you're designing a research guide for a learner. First of all, you want to look for creative ways to include research tips for those learners that might not yet be research savvy. Expressing a thought fully by using as few words as possible is a tip writers use to keep their work tight and concise. The same rule applies to writing a LibGuide. Include visual experiences for your learners. This includes embedding sounds, YouTube videos, and pictures. When writing a research guide, keep in mind that you are not writing a research paper. Keep it loose, keep it simple, keep it fun, but also remain professional. And finally, a learner is going to take your LibGuide a lot more seriously if you include your picture and personal contact information. It just makes good sense. And that's it. Thanks for taking some time to learn about cognitive load and LibGuide.